All right, ready for a deep dive.
Mm.
Today, we're tackling Narendra Modi. I mean, we all know him, right? Huge figure on the world stage. But we're going deeper than those headlines. We're talking leadership, democracy, keeping the peace in a world that feels anything but peaceful. And the really cool thing is, we're using Modi's own words here. Excerpts from a podcast interview he did with Lex Fridman, speaking in Hindi, translated into English.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to hear directly from someone leading the world's biggest democracy. Especially with Modi, his journey to get there is just wow.
No kidding. I mean, from helping his dad sell tea at a train station to prime minister, it's like something out of a movie, right?
Seriously.
But what really got me was that description of his childhood home, Vadnagar, right?
Yeah.
A single room. Talking smaller than some people's closets, mud floors, no window. Can you even imagine?
It definitely makes you think twice about the whole rags to riches story.
Yeah.
Modi owns his background. It's almost like he sees it as the core of how he leads. That upbringing, it links right to his focus on serving others. He even calls himself the prime servant, not just prime minister.
Huh. That's interesting. Just a word change, but man, it says a lot.
Totally.
Okay, so speaking of things that say a lot, Modi's fasting, 9 days, just hot water. I'd be a mess.
It's hardcore, for sure, deeply rooted in Indian spiritual tradition. But Modi says it makes his senses sharper, brings mental clarity. He even talked about smelling water during these fasts, like whether or not we get it, that discipline. You got to have some serious mental resilience. And let's face it, leading over 1 billion people, you need that.
Totally agree. Makes that story about his first White House dinner with Obama even funnier, right? His big meal was hot water. I bet that got some looks.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from fasting. Another big influence on Modi.
Yeah.
The RSS, right?
Yeah.
That's the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Huge in shaping his views.
Right. So for folks who don't know, the RSS, it's gigantic, tied up with Hindu nationalism, and they're all over Indian society. Schools, hospitals, welfare programs, the works. It's not just ideas, it's being active in the community.
Yeah.
One of their slogans is, "Workers unite the world." Sounds kind of familiar, right? Like those old labor movements. But their focus is different. It's on uniting through service, national pride, not so much class warfare.
You can see why that appealed to Modi, right?
Yeah.
Fits his whole vision of India being strong, united on the world stage.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that gets me. What holds such a diverse country together? All those languages, religions, cultures. It's mind-blowing.
Well, Modi says India is more than just politics, it's a civilization, bound together by stories, traditions, pilgrimages. He uses the example of the name Ram. You hear it all over India, different forms, languages, but it's this underlying cultural unity, like that ritual he described, invoking all the rivers of India while bathing, connecting to something bigger.
I like that, a tapestry or something, woven together. Okay, we got to talk about Gandhi, too. That impact on India, on Modi, it's huge, right?
Absolutely. Gandhi's ideas, truth, unity, empowering everyday people. That's woven into modern India for sure.
Yeah.
And you can see some parallels between how Gandhi did things and how Modi does, right? That commitment to dialogue, not being afraid to challenge norms.
Exactly. Like that story, Gandhi at Buckingham Palace, just a loincloth, and he makes a joke about King George having enough clothes for both of them, so Gandhi. But how does that translate to Modi leading on the world stage? Like, is it better to be loved or feared as a leader?
Modi doesn't play that game. He straight up says India will, quote, neither be looked down upon nor look up to anyone, but see eye to eye with others. That's a statement, huh?
For sure. Feels like someone confident in himself, confident in India's power. But how does that actually work in the real world, with so much conflict going on?
It's like he's tapping into that whole India's the land of Buddha and Gandhi thing. Big on peace through talking, actively getting involved. So peacemaker, not by sitting on the sidelines, but by working with everyone to find some agreement, like the war in Ukraine. He's spoken to both Putin and Zelensky right to their faces, saying the only way out is dialogue.
So no avoiding the tough conversations, even with guys known for being stubborn. That takes some serious guts. But then how's that peacemaker role work with a country like Pakistan?
Yeah.
That history is, messy, and there's always that tension.
Oh, yeah, it's a tightrope walk, for sure. On the one hand, you've got Modi making these goodwill gestures, like inviting Pakistan to a swearing-in ceremony. That was a big deal. But then he's also crystal clear about terrorism being a problem, saying Pakistan needs to deal with that straight up. It's like building bridges while still protecting India,
Yeah, it's a tough spot. And it's not just those old rivalries either. Modi's looking ahead, especially with tech. He's been super vocal about India being a leader in AI, right?
He flat out said that whatever the world does with AI, it'll be incomplete without India in the mix. All those engineers they've got, their unique culture, he sees that as essential to shaping how AI develops.
That's a big statement, especially with the US and China kind of dominating the field right now. Does India really have the juice to compete like that?
Modi thinks so, definitely. He uses their 5G rollout, how fast they did it, as proof of what they can do when they're focused. Remember that story about the American exec who went to India and was just blown away by how many engineers they had compared to the US? That kind of sums up how Modi sees it.
Sounds like he wants India to be more than just using tech. He wants them to be making it, shaping it, so it helps everyone.
Exactly. He sees AI as this huge driver of economic growth, social progress, all that. But he gets the ethical side, too. He even pointed out how AI has these limitations, like it can't really make images of people writing left-handed. Subtle way of saying, hey, if you don't have different viewpoints building this stuff, you get bias baked right in.
Good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and forget AI is just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
And that brings us right back to leadership. What kind of qualities do you need to steer a country like India in this century? Ancient traditions on one side, cutting-edge tech on the other. It's a lot.
Modi's kind of a mix himself, right? Traditional and modern all at once. Gandhi, Vivekananda, those guys inspire him. But he's also all about the digital age. Service, discipline, connection to the people, those are big for him. But he's also a sharp strategist, knows how to make decisions.
Yeah, it's a powerful combination. And the whole world's watching how it plays out. India's rising, no doubt. And the way Modi leads, it's going to shape not just their path, but maybe the whole world's. And hold on, before we get too far ahead, let's come back down to earth a bit. Running a country with 1.4 billion people, that's got to be nuts. How does Modi actually put his ideas into action?
We're getting to the nitty-gritty. Let's look at some concrete stuff. Policies, how he manages things, navigating that crazy Indian political scene. It's not easy.
And we got to talk about the pushback, too, the challenges he's hit. No leader's perfect, right? Even the best ones have setbacks, make tough calls that rub people the wrong way.
For sure. It's all part of the picture. The good, the bad, the wins, the losses. That's how we understand Modi's leadership journey. So let's keep going with this deep dive, see how he actually runs the world's biggest democracy. When Modi first got in, one thing that really stood out to me was how he went after corruption. That direct benefit transfer system, that was a big shakeup.
Yeah, it was a bold move to cut through all that bureaucracy, sending government money straight to the people, no middlemen, no chance for things to get siphoned off.
And didn't that save the government a ton of cash? Like trillions of rupees.
You got it. And then that money went to stuff that really matters. Education, healthcare, building things up. It's classic Modi, super practical, using tech to make things work better, more transparent.
He seems big on tech as a way to empower people, not just the government, but everyone in India.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not all high-tech solutions either. Modi gets that sometimes the simple things make the biggest difference. Like how much he focused on sanitation and hygiene, that's had a huge impact on health in India.
And don't forget his push for renewable energy with stuff like the International Solar Alliance. India is becoming a leader in fighting climate change. It's cool how he mixes those immediate needs with a long-term vision for the country.
He's definitely thinking ahead, planning for the future. But of course, no leader gets a free pass. Modi's had his share of criticism, especially when it comes to social issues.
Yeah, you hear concerns about free speech, religious tolerance, how minorities are treated. It's complicated, no doubt. But we got to acknowledge those criticisms even as we look at his leadership.
Totally agree. Open, honest debate, that's what makes a democracy work. And it's good that Modi himself has talked about how important criticism is. He's willing to listen to people who disagree with him.
It just goes to show, even the most popular leaders, they're always juggling different pressures, walking a tightrope politically. It makes you wonder where Modi gets his energy from, He's been in public service forever, and he's still going strong.
He talks about his spiritual side, his faith, how he sees serving others as a form of worship. Those seem to be his guiding principles as a person and as a leader.
So after all this time, diving into Modi's words, his actions, what's the big takeaway here? What have we learned about his approach to leadership, democracy, and India's role in the world?
Well, we've seen how a guy who started with practically nothing became one of the most powerful figures on the planet. We've seen how he thinks strategically, how he handles diplomacy, that big vision he has for India.
And maybe more importantly, we've gotten a better sense of how tough leadership really is. Running a country as diverse and dynamic as India in this day and age, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, Modi's story is a reminder that even with all the problems the world faces, one person can make a difference. And his story's not over yet. We'll definitely be watching to see what he does next.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. We hope this got you thinking about some of these issues, maybe even inspired you to do some digging of your own. What do you think about Modi's leadership? How about India's role in the world? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us.